Alright, sorry, let me pull myself together here. That's better. Okay, let's try and take a comprehensive look at the new cooking system. There's actually a lot of information to cover, so I'm going to try and move as fast as I can, hopefully covering the basics and some stuff that you haven't heard in other outlets. I think before you even start cooking, you should understand your appliances and how they're powered. Don't be like the Swedish woman I know who said, "I'm just going to turn everything on and see if it works." That's great if you're not paying for things. Let's try and be a little more sophisticated than that. Everything you see in this room has been here multiple days through multiple resets, so they're not despawning, except for the improvised grill. That's still despawned, so if that's precious to you, just throw it in a box when you're not using it. Okay, in-game you'll find two portable stoves. On the right is an electric stove, on the left is a gas stove. This gas stove runs on propane gas, so to fill it you'll need one of these propane tanks, or you can fill it at a propane tank at a gas station, but you'll need your ATM card obviously. Once this is filled, you'll get about 40 minutes of runtime. If you're living in one of these prefab buildings, you may have a gas stove. In order to use this, you have to have a propane tank, and all you do is you place a propane tank within its range for it to work. This propane tank, with one burner turned on, will last 5 hours. If you've got more burners turned on, they're going to use more propane, so you'll get less time. With 2 burners, you'll get 2.5 hours of runtime, which I thought was pretty cool, so good job, devs. Now, your electrical appliances, they all require a specific amount of power. This portable electric stove requires 125 watts per plate. So if you're running both of these, you'll need 250 watts. The large refrigerator uses 200 watts, and the small fridge on the left uses 100 watts. Your oven uses 250 watts of power. Obviously, to use these, you'll need electric generators. There's 2 in-game. You have a 500 watt and a 250 watt. According to my testing, the 500 watt generator lasts a little over 72 hours or 3 days. The 250 watt generator will give you 50 hours of power, and this is the same whether you're online or offline. Now this brings us to an issue that I keep seeing come up with players. I keep seeing people say, "How do I plug my refrigerator into the generator?" The way you want to think about this is these generators are state-of-the-art wireless power delivery systems. Each generator, when you turn them on, creates an energy bubble. So if you turn on a 500 watt generator, you can power 500 watts worth of appliances as long as they're within range of that generator. Since I have a 500 watt generator running, I can now go and turn on 500 watts worth of appliances. So we'll turn on the 200 watt refrigerator and the 250 watt oven. If you go back to your generator, you'll see it shows you how many watts you're using. If you need to turn on more appliances, you'll need to add a second generator. When you do that, you'll see it balances the load over both generators. Now the question is, I have a 250 watt oven running. Which of these generators is that 250 watt oven connected to? The answer is, it's connected to both and either at the same time. This phenomenon is known as the quantum superposition of SCUM appliances. But that's beyond the scope of this video, you don't need to know that. All you need to know is that if you want to turn off a generator, you need to make sure that the remaining generator can support the appliances that are still on. If I turn off this generator, you'll see this generator is now carrying the 450 watts. It's always best practice to go back and make sure your appliances are still on. Because in my squad, if you ruin a meal, you become the meal.
Oh, Did I turn off the right one?
Okay, how do we cook? When you first jump into the game, if you click on the cooking tab at the top, you'll see default recipes. These are the recipes that you can make without a cookbook. All you need is the appropriate heat source and cookware. For example, these drinks here, you need a cooking pot to brew them, not a frying pan. If you want to make other things, you'll need a cookbook. You can find these at various places. I guess the hot spot is libraries. Once you have these, if you want to view them, just click on your recipes tab at the top again and you'll see them listed there. When you find a recipe you like and you click on it, one of the things you'll see is a cook time. The time shown here is for someone with advanced cooking skill. If you have no skill, it's going to take 60% longer for you to cook that same meal. If you have basic skill, it's 40% longer. If you have medium skill, it's 20% longer. Then you'll see a cooking temperature. You can just ignore this, especially 600 degrees Celsius. As far as I know, that doesn't work in game yet. Then you have your main ingredients. These are the basic ingredients needed to make this recipe. Then you have optional ingredients. If you add optional ingredients to the recipe, this allows you to get a 5-star rating, meaning when the cook time reaches 0, if you pull the meal off the stove or out of the oven in time, you'll get a 5-star rating. That allows you to remember the recipe. So in the future, you won't need a cookbook in order to cook that same recipe. Also, the rating determines how many skill points you get towards your cooking skill. So you'll be awarded the most skill points if you pull out in time.
That's what she said.
Okay, let's actually cook something. I'm gonna go with bread, so I made sure I have the cookbook on me. And the first thing you want to do is turn on the heat source, although I've found sometimes you don't even need to do that. And then click on cook food. This utility tab is going to show you the sources you have on that appliance. So you'll see the 2 pans that I have on top and the pot. We're going to be working with the oven. To add the recipe, just click on it and then select your recipe, and it's going to show you the ingredients. The green triangles denote the basic ingredients, the blue are the optional ingredients. But first we're going to start with just using the basic ingredients and we'll see what happens. So at this point it's just drag and drop. Need that, and milk and water. And then you just click the hat to cook. So you'll see, since I didn't add any of the optional ingredients, I only got a 4-star rating. Now we'll see what happens when I add all the ingredients. And cook. Sometimes I get this little wheel for some reason. Just tab out, tab back in, and then you can hit cook again. And since I added all the optional ingredients, now I got a perfectly cooked 5-star rating. Something else I want you to take a look at. Since I added the optional ingredients, I got 8 servings versus the 6 with the bread that had no optional ingredients. The nutritional values are also different. The bread that I use the optional ingredients in, I have more servings and I have almost double the calories per serving, which kind of makes sense because I stuck fat in it, which I think This is pretty cool. It means ingredients matter. So good job, devs. Okay, so obvious question. Since ingredients matter, can you make a poisonous skewer? And the answer is yes, and you can tell it's poisonous because it lists the poison in red, which is kind of unfortunate. Something else I found out during testing is that if you take radioactive meat from a radioactive zone, the radioactivity doesn't transfer over to the food after you've cooked it. So unfortunately, you'll need to cook the food in the radioactive zone if you want to poison someone that way. Yep. Okay, next question. Since ingredients matter, what is the best meat to use with your meals if you're a health-conscious SCUM player? You've got 9 different steaks in the game. You've got your pork, bear, deer, goat, wolf, doe, donkey, human, my favorite, and horse steak. It looks like doe is going to be the best meat to use with your meals if you're looking for a lean meat. It's got the highest protein versus fat. Another thing I found out is that how much your ingredients are decayed, that's not going to affect the nutritional value of the meal you make. It's going to have the same nutritional value as a meal that was made with 100% ingredients, but you might only get a 2-star rating versus a 5-star rating. So that's just something else to note. That'll probably change, I imagine, in the future, so just pay attention to hot fixes and patch notes. Alright, next question. What would be the best meal to make? In my opinion, and many others, that is going to be the mixed skewer. Number 1, you don't need a cookbook to make this. It's one of your default items. Number 2, you just get a good protein intake versus fat ratio if you're using the doe steak. Also, something to note, when you're looking at the recipes, if you see a question mark, it shows you different versions of that item that you can replace it with. In this case, there's several mushrooms, but if you use the Boletus edulis mushroom, you're going to get a little bit of a boost in protein versus the other ones. Now, if you use the zucchini, that's got a little bit of a boost in protein, but I don't think that really carries over, which is realistic to me because I don't think vegetables have that much protein. But let's try it out and see what happens. First one we're going to make, we're just going to use this other mushroom. We're going to go with the doe steak. We're going to kick it up a notch with some salt and pepper. Bam! Okay, we got a perfectly cooked skewer here. This is the skewer with the other mushroom. Now we're going to throw some coal on the fire. It's getting low. And we'll do the other skewer with the Boletus edulis. Some doe steak. We'll try the zucchini. Then we'll kick it up a notch with some salt and pepper. Bam! Okay, perfectly cooked again with the Boletus edulis mushroom. Now, what you want to note here, the first skewer 59.6 grams of protein, and we got 2 servings on that skewer. Second skewer with the Boletta sedulus, we got 44 grams of protein and 3 servings. So that just gave us a slight boost in protein. But we got 600 versus 750 more calories. I don't know if this is an intended mechanic or a happy accident. For right now, I would go with the Boletta sedulus, and like I said before, pay attention to hot fixes and patch notes, because I don't know if it's supposed to work this way. Okay, another question. When you're creating your character, should you use any of your skill points towards cooking? And the answer is not in my squad. That is grounds for immediate discharge from active duty.
Hey, I can cook for you now. I rerolled with advanced cooking.
So you're telling me you're useless then? The only other thing I was curious about was if it was possible to tell if a meal was prepared with human steak. Unfortunately, I wasn't that curious, so I didn't go through and analyze everything. But if you know, I guess leave a comment. Or if I got something wrong, leave a comment. Or if you know something I don't know, leave a comment. Because I am sick of cooking. That's all I have to say about that.